Canon came out with the mirrorless camera, the R series a while back, and I was like, no, this is not the camera for me. It doesn't have 2 card slots. It doesn't have the right focus modes. There were some other things that I was not thrilled about with that camera. Never even took possession of one, and stayed with my 5D Mark IV and my 1DX, waiting for the R. Now we know is the R5. What I didn't expect was to be so blown away by the R6 as well, and we'll talk about that today. Yeah. I was thinking that the R5 was going to be it, the be all end all, which it is pretty amazing. And the R6 has kind of surprised me, so I will dive into that. I've had both cameras for a little while. I was able to play with them earlier, but I wasn't able to really talk about that. But now I have them in my possession, which is really what I wanted, because ultimately there's things about the camera that if you get to play with it for an hour or two, you get a little bit of a taste of it, but you really don't get a chance to really bang on it and find what you like and what you don't like. So a couple things, I went and I started shooting. I did some portraits with it. I've used it in a real world situation. Actually, I had a paying job, yay. On Saturday, I did a bar mitzvah via Zoom at this people's home. I'll talk about that. I actually used the R5 in that case. It was amazing. I've done some other shots, and I'm actually going to switch over in the Zoom call and show you some photos I've taken. I'll share my screen, and you can see those. I did both animal tracking and people tracking. And then the other thing I wanted to do is, of course, I wanted to shoot sports with it, because so many people ask me, how will it perform with sports? And of course, right now the challenge is, where do you find sports that are happening anywhere in the US? So I will tell you that my contact at USA Water Polo is working with me right now to line up a shoot potentially next week for some athletes in the pool, probably either scrimmaging or doing some water polo. And I want to take both the R5 and R6, connect it up to my 200 to 400 and shoot that. In the meantime, I realized that there was not going to be a lot of opportunity to shoot sports. So I did is I drove down on Sunday to the coast and I shot surfers, which was action, kind of gave me a taste of it, gave me a chance to do the face detection or people detection. And also along the coastline, you got the seagulls and the other birds that are flying right over you if you're standing on the edge of the coastline. And that's one of those shots that's really difficult because you're kind of firing and you're trying to like track them. And by the time you see them, they're already over you. And so I know my take rate, my typical take rate is about maybe 30 or 40%. So I wanted to know how these cameras would handle the people tracking, the people surfing, and also how to handle the animals. So I will show you that. I will tell you that one of the things that I look at with these things is, what do I not like about the camera? Because I don't want to be one of these people who writes a blog or reviews it and goes, oh, everything's great and perfect, because nothing is perfect. I can tell you this so far, I have not found a lot that I dislike about the camera. I'm very excited to say that, and about both cameras. So let me kind of jump into some of the things that I found initially, and then, like I said, feel free to ask questions. Dave is asking if I've used the R5 with the RF EF adapter. Yes, I actually went and purchased one on Sunday. I could not get one with a control ring because they're just back ordered right now. So I did order one here. It's just a simple standard one that you see here. Look, I got my 8 to 15 fish. So I was meeting with someone this morning that was asking me questions about the new cameras, and they said, can you use the fisheye on it? So I was doing some tests with it today. So I have used that. A couple things I will mention while I've got the R5 in my hand here is the one thing I didn't like about the R6 is I really thought that that this display, which I really rely on quite heavily with the Canon 5D and the 1DX, I like to know my battery strength and how many shots are left and all that. So I really felt like with the R series, that was going to be an issue, at least with the R6, because the R6 does not have that. It just has the standard dials on the top. And I thought that that was going to really bother me. And as it's turned out, it has not bothered me at all. And part of the reason is because with the camera, there's so much information in the viewfinder. And I can see, I don't know if you guys can see all the details here, but you've got a lot of information on the LCD, way more than you actually saw there. Well, you can't really do it. The exposure is not right to see the menus. But trust me, all down both sides and down, basically surrounding the entire LCD, it's way more information than we got on the DSLRs. So I actually don't even look on the R5 at the top of the camera. I'm actually looking through the camera and getting all the information. So weirdly enough, something I thought was going to be my biggest problem is not. So that's kind of handy. A couple other things that I just noticed I had stabilization turned off on the 2470. A couple of things I do like the screen, the fact that it comes out so I can shoot low. I was shooting pictures of the dog and I posted, look, there's a reflection of me. But you know, it's kind of cool to get low and shoot. I do like that. It actually worked very well. The image quality is incredible. Right now, I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG, which I never do. And usually I'm shooting RAW only. I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG right now because the Adobe Camera Raw does not open R5 and R6 RAW files yet. I've sent emails to Adobe asking them when those will be available. I have not gotten a definitive answer yet. I know they have a beta for the DNGs, but that's not what I want. So I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG so that I can at least show you guys images and post images and so forth. Image quality is incredible. I wanted to actually, I should have, let me pull up, and this will take a second here. I want to show you some images that I shot, and these are just out of the camera and not edited. What happened was I was shooting a friend of mine, their son, who had a rifle that he just got. And so we went to a rifle range and he wanted me to shoot an image. Let me pull it up. I'm gonna share this with you. So give me one sec here. And share screen. Okay, and hopefully everybody can see that. You guys can see the screen, the picture?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if you look at this image of Ethan, so what he wanted was, he wanted the shell, the clip and the shell ejecting from the camera. It's an old, from the gun. And this is an old World War II type gun. And on the last shell, it would expend the clip. And so I was shooting it, I believe I was shooting at 14 frames a second here. But I took my 1DX initially to shoot it. But as you can tell by this image, the lighting is way backlit. So when I shot this with the 1DX Mark III, Ethan was completely silhouetted. And I'm looking through the camera going, okay, so what do I need to do for exposure comp? I didn't bring a flash and I wanted to burst the shots. So I'm like, what should my exposure comp be, like +1, +2? I'm not really sure. So then I put down the camera and I brought out the R5. And of course, I'm seeing the exposure in the camera itself. Mm-hmm. And I knew I could just roll it. So I rolled it to +2 at ISO 1000 f4 with 16 hundredths of a second. But by moving that exposure comp up, I had the perfect exposure in camera without even having to guess at it. And so that was a game changer. Honestly, let me just jump back for a second here. Stop share, let me go back to me. So that in itself was incredible to be able to make, you know, the changes needed without having to really even guess. It was just right there in my face. That and having all the information on the sides allowed me to make customizations that normally I would have to stop and think or take the camera down, look at it, make adjustments, or do them later in camera raw. So yes, that's mirrorless versus DSLR, not specific to the R5. It's just the availability of having that information in front of you. I will tell you that and shooting this bar mitzvah that I did on a Saturday, I ended up using the R5 almost exclusively for that because it was so quiet, which was really nice. There's 3 modes. We'll talk about that in a second. But just having the feedback right in front of me and looking at the exposure, and I thought, goodness gracious, this is exactly what I need. So it was so refreshing to have all the exposure exactly the way I wanted. And there are 3 modes in shooting for the cameras. There's mechanical mode, which is kind of what we're used to with the DSLRs. Then they have the electronic mode and electronic first curtain. Electronic first curtain is what you typically would, what they default to. The camera in that mode, and let me just make sure it's in that mode. So I've set up my custom menus with all my most used things. Let me just get to my custom menus. So shutter mode, electronic first curtain sounds like this, and I'll try to hold this up. Well, let me get a proper exposure here. Let's see here. We are, let's see, hear this? Okay, that's electronic first curtain, which works very well. And then the full mechanical sounds like this. Still not very loud. And then of course, if I go to full electronic, it sounds like this. You can't tell I'm shooting. It's shooting. The disadvantage of electronic, fully electronic, is, and I'll talk about it here. Let me just get back to first curtain. Here's the thing. If you're shooting sports, you probably want to be in the first curtain or mechanical. If you're in mechanical shutter, you will not have any problem with the oblong. There's some issues with sports if you're shooting in electronic shutter with some distortion. I have yet to see it, but I've been told it's there. But I'll tell you that for shooting, what I was shooting, most of the stuff I shoot, the electronic first curtain is perfect. If I want to be completely silent, then I'll go into electronic. What I don't like about the electronic shutter for burst mode is you can shoot a single shot or 20 frames per second. There is no medium. If I'm shooting an electronic first curtain, I can shoot at a medium burst, slow burst, fast burst, that kind of thing. So if I'm shooting an event like a wedding or bar mitzvah, I don't want to shoot at 20 frames a second. I don't need that fast. So I'll typically be in the first curtain, which honestly is quiet enough that no one's going to hear it anyway. And again, for doing portraits and stuff like that, I'm actually used to hearing the sound. It's very disconcerting for all of us that have shot with DSLRs to not hear a shutter or any feedback. That takes some getting used to. What it does is the entire frame around the viewfinder that you're looking through has a little border that lights every time that you're firing. And at least for now, that's not enough feedback for me. I want a little bit more than that. So that's one of the things I found in the camera. But again, those are just modes. It's easy to switch between them. I've used face detection and animal detection. I'll show you some of those images here in a minute. What I found is incredibly accurate take rate. The kid that you saw that was holding his rifle, Ethan, he's a teenager. I said to Ethan, let me do portraits of you. And we did. Actually, I'll show you those here. Let me again share the screen. So let me get to that image first. So give me one sec, because we did a ton of shots here. So we put him on a swing, and I shot with him on a swing, kind of checking the focus modes. I had him running at me. I shot pictures of my dog. But then we did portraits of Ethan, and I'm going to pull some of these up here, like this one. So let me share. So this is Ethan. This is straight out of the camera. This is taken with the 51.2 lens using the eye tracking. So, but what's really interesting, and I'm gonna jump through these images here for a second. You're gonna see ugly ones of me. I gave Ethan my camera at f1.2, and I said, take pictures of me. Now, for any of you who've ever shot at f1.2, the odds of getting an image really good and in focus it's tough to do. You give it to someone who's never held a camera like this and say, shoot them, nothing's in focus. Yet with the eye detection mode, I told them just hold down the autofocus button on the back, because I back button focus. Every shot he took was in focus on my eyes at f1.2. That's, for a novice, that's crazy. So that to me, and I'll put this in the blog, that was really telling to me, because I can tell you that when I'm shooting at f1.2, I'm not in focus every time. I mean, either the subject moves or I move or something. And I was shooting and I had him like moving around, doing all kinds of stuff, walking back and forth at f1.2, and the take rate was excellent. So the eye detection and face detection was great. One place I saw that it did fail, I guess fail is probably the wrong word, when I was shooting the bar mitzvah at these people's home and the boy was looking down, reading, I did not have his eyes at all, and eye detect was turned on. So what happened was the camera then went to mom and dad, who were on both sides of him, and said, okay, I'll go to their eyes. And there is a mode on the camera, and if you have one of these cameras and you don't have it set, there is a mode where it'll go on the face or the eyes, and then you'll get arrows on either side. And you can move it. You can use the joystick and tell it, okay, go to the next person to the left or right. So you can tell it who's your primary subject, which I'll show you in a second with the surfers. But what I found was when the head was down, it would not detect them. So what I did was I switched the camera from eye detect or face detect to the single point focus, which is what we've always done with our SLRs. And I used that as my, my focal mode so that it would not drift off of my subject. Once the kid was looking up again, it was fine. And I found that with the surfers, because I was above the surfers, I didn't always have their eyes. Most of the time I didn't. So it would drift a little bit there. So it's not perfect, but I can tell you that the take rate is significantly better than what I've done in the past using back button focus and using my DSLRs. So let me, before I keep moving here and with that, let me look through the questions here. So Cristiano is a sports photographer, a little worried about the 20 frames per second electronic shutter mode. So I'm still testing that. And I will have to, so the effect is what's called rolling shutter. And it tends to, if you take like a baseball at 100 miles an hour, the baseball can kind of get oblong versus perfect circle. I have yet to see it. I did have Ethan, the boy that we photographed, throwing a tennis ball as fast as he could, some things like that. But I've yet to actually seen the rolling shutter. So far so good. Jessica says that sports is mainly what they shoot. Let's see here, also hockey and soccer, great. High-speed action, you'll see in a second, at least for the surfing, was very, very good. I'll show you those so you can see it. There is no effect, no ill effect with the EF adapter. So a lot of people are asking about the adapter. If you look through the adapter here, it's just an air, it's just a hole. All it's really doing is allowing us to convert from EF connectors to the RF connectors on the older lenses. There is no degradation. You still can use your image stabilization both in camera and in the lens. So it's been solid and no issues. I used the Canon R5 and R6 with the adapter with everything from my 100 to 400 fisheye, 7200, and the 200 to 400, the big beast, all with that camera and no issues at all, which is great. Can the R5 replace the 1DX for sports? I don't know yet, Dave. My guess is that it would, but still TBD. I think that there are definitely advantages to the R5, especially with the head and face detection, which the 1DX Mark III can do. 1DX Mark III has, again, same processor and image sensor as the R6. So I would think that it would be fine. And you could put it in mechanical shutter mode. It won't be as fast as a 1DX Mark III. It would be the only problem. The other advantage of a 1DX Mark III is it does have two of the CF Express. Look, I've got cameras everywhere here. It has two of the CF Express slots. So when it's writing to the memory cards, it's going to write to both of them super fast and also write and then read from those cards. But the writing speed will be quick because it's going to two super fast cards. Whereas on the R5, I've got one of those card slots, and then I've got an SD slot here. So that's going to slow things down because the SD card slot is not nearly as fast as CF Express. So clearing the buffer will still be faster in the 1DX Mark III. Did I use 20 frames per second for the rifle shot? I did not. I told Ethan, so I was counting his shots. It's the first time he's ever used a rifle. So he'd count, and once I get to 7, I'd say, hold on, let's get ready for that clip to come out. So I was holding the camera. I believe I was at the 12 frames per second mode. I waited for him, and I said, go, and I fired, and he fired. So didn't have to do 20 frames per second. Yeah, so Robert says, welcome to the benefits of mirrorless with WYSIWYG, and boy, that is the truth. I mean, it is life-changing, honestly. I was texting Canon this weekend as I was shooting saying, this thing is amazing, like really, really good. Let's see here. Bob just received an email from Adobe Lightroom beta program, and they're on the final beta build for Lightroom 9.4. Hopefully that'll be, which often includes a new RAW. So hopefully, yeah, you're saying 2 weeks away. I hope it's sooner than 2 weeks, because I don't like shooting JPEG. I prefer to shoot RAW everything if I can. So, so John says, I have a problem with the battery grip, or sorry, battery level indicator on the R5 when the grip is attached. Only shows one battery. Interesting. I have not tried the grip yet. So John, I'm not familiar with that. But you know what, I may, let me follow up on that with you, because I'll check with my Canon contact on that and see what's going on. Honestly, I prefer not to use the grip. I like to have really the small, lightweight ability of the R5. And honestly, I don't know how many shots, I should have looked how many shots I took at the surfing on Sunday. It was a lot. I took like 1,500 images. Most of those were the R5 and never changed the battery. So when Canon's saying that you get like 350 images, that's not at all what I was getting. I was getting way more than that. So Jason wants to know, did I try autofocus with extremely backlit photos in dark conditions? Because the A9 II struggles with that. I have not, other than the backlighting I did with Ethan with the gun, was really one of the tougher situations, and I'll show you some again with the surfing and the birds, but it's handled it very, very well. Anna wants to know, how do I think the eye detection will work on football behind mask? Good question, great question. I don't know the answer to that, and again, I'm not even gonna speculate until I try it, because, I mean, I don't wanna be the person that's gonna tell you, oh yeah, that's gonna work great, and it doesn't. Because like I said, even with the surfers, when they were looking down, it went from eye detection to head detection, which was great. But it still drifted off a couple times, and I'll show you that. Do I have any RF lenses? I do have a couple RF lenses, John. I've got the 2470 on the R6. That's this one here. I also have the, where is it? I've got the 51.2 that's over in my bag. So I have both of the RF, and very, very sharp, really nice lenses. TW wants to know how it feels in my hands, which is actually the first thing I was worried about. How's it feel? I'm used to the bigger 5D and 1D, and I was worried about how my hand would fit holding the grip, and zero issues, zero. And I will say that the 2470, it's fairly narrow here, if you can see that, versus, you know, depending if I have the adapter on there, you'll see that, for instance, on the R5 here, because the lens I'm using, it's not as cramped. See how the space for my fingers. So it depends on the lens. The 2470 is a thicker lens, so it's a little tighter here. But again, I hold the camera like this. There's still space. It's not an issue. So yeah, it's been totally fine. Let's see. So it feels great. Jeff, 1DX Mark III or R5, R6? Mario wants to know, it depends what you're shooting. So far, I will be honest with you, so far I would tell people, especially with the price difference, I'd probably go with the R. You know, unless you're specific, if I'm shooting the Olympics, if the Olympics were happening today, like it was supposed to be in Tokyo, I probably would still be using the sports. I'd probably still be using the 1DX Mark III. Although, hard to say, because once you use mirrorless, it's hard to go back. Because you get used to that WYSIWYG, you know, what you see is what you get in the camera. Okay, I'm gonna stop on questions for a second, and I'm gonna move over here to the images, and I wanna show you what I shot Sunday. So give me a sec here. Oops, let me try that again. Hold on, I need to go to full screen. I want you guys to be able to see this here. Okay. You guys all see that? Thumbs up? Yep. Good. All right. So this is looking at the animal detection. I do have a setting in my custom menu to switch between animal and people detection. Although I did use animal detection on people and people detection on animals. It worked fairly well, but of course you want to use the algorithm that Canon set. This one here was interesting because the bird was already past me. Still had very, very good focus on the eyes. I'm gonna jump through here some different images. This one here is the one that I just posted on social media. Great focus. This is important because I didn't see the bird till last second. I raised the camera, hit the AF on button and shot, and it locked in focus very, very fast, even tracking it all the way through the frame here. You'll notice that, well, here's an example where the bird's in front of a background. So here you just have clear sky. This is a little bit tougher for it to track when you've got a lot of other things going around it, but it locked in. The other thing to keep in mind here is the bird is not dead center on the frame. So if I had a center point focus at servo, like I would on my 1D or my 5D, this would not be in focus because I'd be focusing dead center. If you see my mouse, I would have been here and not over here. And I'll show you some other examples of that. This is tracking, locking in perfectly on the eye. And here you can see catch light on the bird, on the eye. I love this shot, not because I love the shot, but because again, my focal point would normally be in the middle, not way to the edge of the frame. Even at the very edge of the frame, it's tack sharp on the face of the bird. Now, I'm not going for image quality here. The lighting's not good. My subject's not exactly the best in the world. That's not what I was trying to get to. I was trying to test it. This one here was the bird flying in front of the grass that was in front of me. You can see the reeds here out of focus. This is with the 100 to 400. But the bird, even though it went through the grass, it still tracked it very, very well. This is without the stuff in front of it, still locking in very well. This was a little tougher. This is with the pier in the background. And I tried to lock focus on the bird in front of the pier. And I don't know if you guys can see this or not. Hold on here. That's zoomed in. That is not sharp. So it did have trouble with this much distraction. And also, you know, I was zoomed in and I believe at 400 millimeters here, it was having a hard time to figure out what subject I was trying to lock in on. If I had locked in on the bird prior to it flying in front of this, it probably would have been easier. Perfectly on the eye here. This shot here is another great example of eye detection. This eye is tack sharp. Look at this. Very, very sharp on a flying bird. And where is the bird? At the very bottom of my frame. Now I could tell you that I planned that. I didn't. They were fast and I was just trying to track them. So again, if I was shooting this without the detection mode on, my servo focus would have been probably middle frame and this would have been a throwaway. So my take rate normally would be 30 or 40% for birds like this in this kind of condition. And my take rate with the R5 and R6 was about 90%. Here's another bird, and you'll notice I had foreground that it was flying through here. It did a great job of tracking even through the brush. So now I'm actually shooting through this plant. It's still tracking the bird. Now, granted, it's not a great image, but that's not what we're looking for here. Here's even deeper into that. It still didn't get thrown off by the plant. And now it's coming out of the plant, and it's still holding focus. Another one, off frame here, not a good shot, but it locked in perfectly. This one here, this is completely out of focus. There's a bird. Yes, even I shoot crappy shots. There you go. I was trying to lock in on the bird. It could not. With the trees and everything around it, it wasn't sure what my subject was, and it could not lock in. Eventually it did, but at this point it did not. So now, this is the surfers. Unfortunately, we didn't have huge waves, but it did what I wanted to do. I wanted to lock focus on this woman in the middle. So I had back button focus turned on. It face detected her in the center of the frame. And I'm going to jump through these images I want you to see. It's tracking her perfectly, even though, again, she's not centered. She's already off center. It's tracking her. And as other subjects are going to come up here behind her and in front of her, it's still dead on with my focus on the face, which is a great test when you have all the stuff behind and in front. It's still staying on the subject that it locked in on initially, all the way through as I'm shooting. Oops, all right, so. And then I locked in on this guy. Again, this was a test because he's not facing me. So I'm trying to use eye detect. It's now switched to face detect. Still tack sharp all the way through until there was one frame that's in here that was soft. I'm trying to find it. It may have been a different sequence. These are all sharp. And again, he didn't look at me at all in any of these sequences. And you can tell this person's wildly out of focus. He's still in focus. So did a very good job. There was one surfer that I got where it did lose focus in at least one of the frames. And I like this one because the bird was my subject, not her. So she's out of focus. The bird was in focus. This is my test from about half hour ago, right before we started this call. And this is the fisheye lens with Cooper lounging just to check and see. And this is a test I just did in my office here. This is using the fisheye lens with the iPhone app. So I was controlling the camera with the app, with eye detection turned on. So it's tracking my eyes, and I was able to adjust the exposure comp, white balance, aperture, everything all from the app, and it worked really, really well. So let me just jump back for a sec. So those are kind of the initial tests that I've done at this point. And I will tell you, as I mentioned, it's been incredibly accurate and fun to use. It's just, seriously, it's been a joy. One thing that I've done at least 4 times is on the top of the camera. We're used to having ISO up here on the top of the camera. And so when I reach up here for ISO, it's not there, and I accidentally hit the record button for video. I've turned video on at least 3 times where I didn't mean to. You can turn that button off, and I might. And a couple of things that I learned in the last couple of days of really using these is I don't need to worry about finding the ISO button anymore, because the dial right here in the back is now my ISO dial. I believe that's defaulted that way. So initially what I did with the R6, it has the R lens, so I made the dial up here on the lens my ISO. And as it turns out, because I could just do it with the back dial here and just roll the back dial right here, I make that ISO, and I'm going to change this to something else, maybe exposure comp or whatever. So I did hit the record button a bunch of times, and so that was a little annoying. The other thing I will mention that still I'm getting used to, on the back of the camera, so you can get this here. Right here is the rating button, which used to be the menu button. And now the menu button is 2 in, not this one, it's this one. And I can't tell you how many times I've hit this rating button where I'm trying to get to the menu button. I don't know why they switched that. I wish they hadn't. I wish they would left menu over to the far left. But again, these are like tiny things that that we can relearn, and I don't think it'll be an issue. But it is something that kind of, I'd like to see them change. Let me see if I have other questions here. How many megapixels does each camera have? Chris wants to know. The R5 has 45 megapixels, and the R6 has 20 something, just like the 1DX Mark III. Megapixels has never been a big issue to me. High ISO shooting clean is more important. With that said, I think that the R5 with 45 megapixels, like in places where I'm shooting mostly in daylight, like Africa, I think that the R5 with the 100 to 500 lens, or even the 100 to 400 lens, which I've had on this camera, would be amazing in Africa. For the animal detect for the eyes, so every shot of those lions and stuff would be tack sharp. John, the picture of the bear behind you, you know that that's going to be tack sharp, because once you lock in on it, man, it's good. So it's going to allow us to do some really amazing stuff in that respect. Having more megapixels in Africa would be great, because then I can crop in if I need to. And most of the stuff we're shooting in Africa is close, but not always. So it would be nice to have some more megapixels to play with. But I can tell you that for shooting things like weddings, bar mitzvahs, stuff like that, I may actually opt to the R6. It's less expensive. The ISO will be cleaner than the R5 because there's less megapixels on the sensor, which means that they're actually spread out. There's less heat buildup. I want to set up my R5, R6, 1DX, and 5D Mark IV all pointing at the same subjects in the same lighting and do an ISO test, and I plan to do that hopefully the next couple of days here, and then I'll be able to tell you more about that. Do I shoot? Dirk wants to know if I'm shooting through the viewfinder or through the display. I've shot through the display a couple of times. It's too weird for me. I'm so used to using the viewfinder and actually prefer the viewfinder. With that said, I've tried using the, just using the LCD on the back for shooting some stuff, and it's kind of cool. What I am excited about is like the video I just posted yesterday, or was it this morning? I don't remember. Yesterday, I think it was, about perspective correction. And I shoot all my own intros and stuff by myself. So I set up an LED light and the camera's on a tripod. And I start and stop the camera either from the camera or from the iPhone app. And what I'm really excited about with the R series is now, because it's got the screen that comes out, I can have it turned so that when the camera is like this pointing at me, I can make sure I'm in frame. And a lot of times with the 5D Mark IV, I walk in and I mark a position where I'm standing. I go to see if I'm in frame or not. And then I go back and say, oops, I need to back up a little bit more. Where at least with the R, I can just flip the screen around and I can start and stop recording using the app, which by the way is very easy to set up. And then, so I think that'll be really cool. John, do I have any RF lenses? Yeah, 2 24-70 and 50-1.2 right now. I do want to get the 70-200. These are loaners, by the way, from Canon still. So I probably will get the 70-200 because it's my most used lens. Although I have no problem in using the adapter with my current 70-200 because I still love that lens. So, TW, let's see here. Nope, so let me jump through here. Sorry. So S. Sasaki says, on an EOS R, I found increased performance of the EF L series lenses using the adapter. Increased performance. Interesting. Faster focus and more images in focus. I can tell you why. People should not be concerned about that at all. And I agree with that. And here's the thing. The focus speed of both the R5 and the R6 is noticeable. So I can tell you that when first time I picked up the cameras and really started playing with them, pointing at subjects like my dog or even the surfers, it was noticeable even to me right off the bat. It was locking focus really fast. And I'm used to the 1DX Mark III. So I'm used to very fast focusing, and it seemed on par with the 1DX Mark III. And sometimes it even seemed better. So it works very, very well, either with the RF lenses or, like he said, with the adapted lenses. So, Carl, do you not think that in 4 years' time for 2024 Olympics there'll be an R1 and maybe sooner? Absolutely. I do believe, and again, Canon would ever tell me anyway, so don't think that this is me giving a Canon, that they've told me. But I can tell you that I think an R1 is imminent. Not right away, but it will happen for sure. And what I'd like to see, I should do a blog on this. What I'd love to see in an R1 is, so I don't want any of the distortion we talked about for sports, the rolling shutter. I want probably a bigger battery. I want 2 CF Express card slots so that I can write to both cards really, really fast. Other than that, what else? Maybe a built-in grip. I don't know. Maybe not. If I had a bigger battery, I guess I would have a built-in grip. So I think from image quality and all the other features of this camera, this one is almost there already. But here's Carl, the other question is, will it be 2024 Olympics, or will Canon have something for me to play with a year from now? Because literally a year from now will be toward the closing ceremonies of Tokyo. Let's hope it happens. And so will I have an R1 in my hands by then even? Don't know. But that'd be nice. I'd take it. D, do you have some photos with using animal detection? Hopefully you saw the ones I shot. I will be posting more. There's also this really cute, couple cute kids live down the street. They're very young and they're always running around being crazy. So I've talked to the parents about going over there with the 70-200 or 100-400 and just blasting out shots of little kids playing to really check face detection, eye detection on very fast moving little subjects. John has the 24-240 and the 800, and the 800 mil. Do I know when the 100-500 will be released? Yes. The 100-500 is not out yet. and probably won't be out for, like John's like, yes. Probably won't be out for at least another, I don't know, 3 weeks probably at least, is my guess. Don't know that for sure. So Canon's official line on the 100 to 500 lens is that it'll be out by the end of September. It'll probably be out before that, is the best I could tell you. I really, really want to try that lens on this camera. I think it'd be fantastic. I should mention on lenses, all the RF lenses I played with so far have been fantastic. I'm not thrilled with the 600 and 800 millimeter f11, but John's got the 800. I have yet to try it. So I looked at the specs. I'm like, but you know, maybe I'll be surprised. So, but the 100 to 500, I wish it ended at 6.3 instead of 7.1, but we can't have it all. So now the question is, am I going to use the 100 to 400, 200 to 400, or the 100 to 500 when I go to Africa and Costa Rica? And that is a question I don't know the answer to yet. Do I have L brackets for the cameras? I don't use L brackets, Charlie. I use the Acrotech plates, and I've taken plates off of my 5D and my 1D, or 5D, my older 5D Mark III, and I've put them on here, but the Acrotech actually makes custom plates for every camera, so I've already emailed them asking if they have them for the R5 and R6. So, Peter, I will get you, in the blogs, upcoming blogs, I will give you guys more detailed thoughts on what I'm finding, what I'm liking, what I'm not liking, you know, kind of beyond what I'm saying here, because it's probably that some stuff I'm forgetting. I did write some notes here. Let's see. No. Oh, one thing I did write. Let me just get a drink here. Sorry. You know, this is what happens when you talk a mile a minute. One of the things I do, and I always tell people to do, is back button focus. With the 5D Mark III and the 1DX and all those cameras, I recommend back button focus. On the RF cameras, or on the R cameras, I'm not sure if that's necessary. It may be that you can actually, because you're seeing everything right away, and because of the fact that it is doing a lot of the focus work for you, maybe we don't need to back button focus anymore. So TBD on that, but that is something I'm looking at. Oh, good question from TW. What case am I shooting with? In other words, what case mode am I shooting with when I'm using the autofocus? And I will tell you that I've had numerous discussions with the top technical people at Canon USA. I had about an hour-and-a-half call on Friday with one of the guys who knows this camera backwards and forwards, been shooting with this camera for more than a year in prototype stage. And one of the things that he had me change is the case mode, and I'm gonna make sure I get this right. Let's see here. Because I believe my case mode is, let's see, you can see it, auto. So it's most of the time in my other cameras, I do not select the bottom option, which is auto mode. I'm usually in case 1, case 2, whatever. And they told me that the artificial intelligence or the machine learning in this camera is so good that if you keep it in auto mode, you'll actually have better luck. And I can attest to that. So far, it's been incredibly good. So if you have the R5 or R6, go to auto mode for your case settings. Thank you for asking that, TW. I appreciate that. Robert wants to know if the back dial is ISO when shooting manual, what is aperture and where is aperture and speed? So here's one of the great things about the camera. The camera, you can determine what dials and what buttons you want to be what. And so the customization of the camera is incredibly flexible, is probably the best way to put it. You can make any dial whatever you want it to be, pretty much. So you can change buttons, you can change dials to a lot of different things. So you can make like the front dial be aperture, your back dial be ISO. You could put the dial on the lens or your adapter to be shutter speed, whatever. So you can set that up to whatever's comfortable to you, which is pretty cool. Jessica, how do I feel about weatherproofing? So I'll be honest with you, I shoot in Costa Rica in the rainforest, we shoot, but if it's downpour, we don't shoot. So I generally am not shooting in crazy, crazy downpours. I'm happy to say I do have rain covers, but even cameras that have not been completely weather sealed, I've never had an issue. So yeah, I wouldn't dunk it underwater, that's for sure. But clearly having weathered sealed is nice and it's helpful, but it's never stopped me from shooting. So that may or may not answer your questions. But bad weather, I mean, again, if it's downpour, I wouldn't shoot. If you have rain, and I've shot in the rainforest plenty of times with rain, I don't care. They do fine. Mario, despite the fact that you have more megapixels on the R5, multiple reviews confirmed the ISO on R5 is better than the R6. That's not what I've been told by people that are in the know. So, but here's the thing. Until I try it, I'm not gonna even answer it. So one of the things I really wanna do is do it myself, look at the images and see. Because here's the thing, I'll tell you. The specs of an R5 show that the LCD and the viewfinder is better and higher resolution on the R5 than it is on the R6. So my thought was, oh God, is that a deal breaker because I need a higher quality? Guess what? Didn't even know. If you look at both cameras side by side, R5, R6, and I did this morning, you can't really tell the difference. So what I thought might be a deal breaker again is not. So there, yes, technically in a spec, the R5 is higher resolution. But to me, from a photographer standpoint, zero quality difference to allow me to take a good photo. So, so going back to ISO, I will do test and see, but if we're splitting hairs, then we're splitting hairs. In other words, if I have to look so hard to see if there's a difference, then there's not a difference to me because I don't have clients who say to me, oh, you know, we really love this image, but it looks a little noisy to me. They don't say that. And we get picky because we're into photography and we want a good quality image. But honestly, we might be splitting hairs. I will test that and I will get back. And actually, I'm gonna write a note. Where's the analog pen? There it is. ISO test. So make sure I put that as a priority to do that. Okay. Let's see here. D wants one bad. By the way, if you guys do order anything, I should say this every time. If you order anything from B&H, please use the link that's in my blog. It doesn't change the pricing or anything for you, but it just does give me a referral credit, like to B&H that you're buying because you follow me. So, and it actually helps me. So, let's see here. And yeah, D, you know what? I'm salivating. These are loaners, and I can tell you that I'm not giving them back when I'm supposed to until I have my own in my hands. So I'm right there with you. Jason, I wish I could, let's see, I wish Canon would make a 400-5.6 for the R5 and I6. I might just switch back. Yeah, you switched from Canon to Sony. Bad, Jason. You know what? Here's the thing. The R is the future for Canon. Well, at least for the next, what, 10 years, 20, I don't know. The R is definitely the future. I say that probably we won't see any more DSLRs from them. I do expect the 1DX Mark III replacement to be an R, like an R1. I don't think you'll see a 5D Mark V. I think the R5 is that. So they will continue to come out with more and more R series lenses, which to Dee's point, we'll just keep salivating because I think that that's going to happen for sure. Sasaki wants to know, have I tried pushing the combination of IS stabilized lenses and in-body stabilization and purposely trying to blur the picture? So I have not purposely tried. I can tell you, and I'm glad you asked that question because I should tell you, I took the R6 with the 24-70 lens, shot pictures in my family room in the evening at 1/5 of a second, tack sharp, using the stabilization of both in-camera stabilization combined with the lens. I've also I took a picture weeks ago when I was playing with Canon's R5 and R6 at, I believe it was 3/4 of a second exposure and still got good image out of it. So with the combination of in-camera stabilization and lens stabilization, it is not unheard of to be able to shoot at half a second and get a good sharp image. So again, depending on what you're shooting and your lens and how steady you are, how many Diet Cokes I've had, whatever it might be, it's very, very, very good. Carl, when the Canon Tech guy was on R6 ISO 102,000, was amazingly clean but very noisy with the R5. I will take a look at that. I'll be honest with you guys. ISO 102,000 to me is kind of a joke. I would never want to push my camera to that point. First of all, it's not even a real ISO. That's kind of done in computation. Those are bragging rights for Canon, Nikon, Sony to throw specs out there. The only time I guess I'd ever shoot an ISO 100,000 is, you know, I'm trying to shoot a picture of someone smoking a cigarette at night and I don't have a flash and I want to get the shot because it's a cool, moody shot. Maybe I do that. Or, you know, if I've got some crazy wildlife in Africa and it's already at sundown and I'm gonna try to get it, maybe. But you know, typically with my cameras, I keep my ISO at about 4,000 and lower. That's not always the case. There are times I'll push the 1DX or the 5D Mark IV to 10,000, but I've never gone above 10,000, and even that's kind of a lot. Canon Rumors claims that there's a patent out for the RF 200 to 800 lens, which would be really interesting to me, depending on what f-stop, you know, what its aperture range is. So that would be cool to see. And I think that, I mean, clearly people like Sigma and Tamron and others will come out with RF lenses as well. I mean, because again, this is the kind of the future. Chris, can I use EF lenses on either our camera? Yes. So I've got the adapter that's currently on the R5, but literally, if I just take this off, so this is the adapter and lens here, and I could take the same thing and just put it on the R6. So this adapter, which comes in this box here, this is $99. And I'm actually contemplating if I switch to all mirrorless or whatever, I might actually buy one of these for each lens. So I don't even have to worry about the lens going into the adapter into the camera. I can just, because that way if I switch to an RF lens versus an EF lens, I can just keep the adapters on the EF lenses and just easily switch and not have to worry about adapters coming on and off. So that's what I'm thinking about. By the way, I should mention 3 adapters. So there's the standard adapter, which is this one here, which is really vanilla. It's just, you know, just a piece of metal, essentially. It's just the connectors. It's this piece right here, here down, okay? That's one. The second one has the control ring. So you can program that to be whatever you want. That's cool. That's the one I really want. The third one is also very interesting. The third one is built-in filter. So you can drop in filters and it has a dial on it. So you could put a circular polarizing filter in it and you just roll the dial on the little adapter. You just roll the dial and they'll change the polarization. Here's what's cool about that adapter. That means any lens I put on my R series camera could have polarization, even the 200 to 400, 100 to 400, wide angle, fisheye, whatever, can have polarization, which you can't put a polarizer on a fisheye on any other camera. I could with this. So I think that's kind of compelling. So I may end up getting one of those as well. I'm just trying to figure out what I need. I don't want to go into this typical photographer mode where I'm just like, I'll order everything, although I really want to. So those are the 3 different adapters. Is there a crop mode on the R5? Okay, I don't know the answer to that. There are some different modes I've seen, and I believe there's a crop mode for video. I don't know. I think there's also a crop mode for stills. Catherine is nodding, yes. So, so yeah, there is. I have not used it, so I don't know exactly how well it works. So
it crops down to I think 17 megapixels.
With magnification as well, then.
If you put it in the crop mode.
Okay.
Yeah. The R6 I think is 1.6 times and down to like 7 megapixels or something.
Great. I will test that and play with that and put that in the blog as well. So thank you for that, everybody. Let's see. And then John says that the rumor is the 200 to 800 would be f6 to f8.5. Yeah, I'd rather that be f4 to f7. I'll take 8.5 at 800 millimeters, I guess. There's just, again, there's so much new stuff coming with this. And I think it's just going to keep going at this point. I think that this is just, you know, I said when the R came out, I guess it was a couple of years ago, I said, not the camera for me, but this is the tip of the iceberg. And I think what we're seeing now is we're getting into the iceberg. We're getting into the meat now, where Canon's saying, we're, you know, yeah, Sony kind of ate our lunch for a while. Now we're going to take it and step up the game. And I think that's what they've done. Now the question is, what are they going to do from here? And I think, you know, I think we're going to see longer lenses. We're going to see, you know, more RF specific lenses, maybe even like tilt shift and things. You never know. I think we'll see I do think we'll see an R1. Again, I'm guessing at specs. I'll tell them what I want. I'll probably do a blog about it. But I do think that it is possible that you know, there'll be an R1 even by the Tokyo Olympics next year, but that's a guess. So Charlie wants to know, will I have tested the ability to autofocus in low light? Yeah, absolutely I will. So far I've done a little bit of it already. And surprisingly, even with face detection at low light, it was very good. I'll tell you something else interesting that I did Saturday when I was shooting the bar mitzvah in these people's homes. And yes, I had my mask on. I was shooting and the kid was looking down. As I mentioned, it tried to focus on both the parents' eyes. And at one point there was a photo behind them. I think it was a photo or a painting of someone, a face, and the eye detection jumped over onto the picture and said, like, how about this one? I'm like, no, get off that thing. So, and that was in pretty low light. So it is, it's pretty amazing in the capabilities and the machine learning, what's inside this camera. I was trying to think of the other menus. What I should do is also do a blog on the menus you should change within the R5 and R6, kind of recommended menu things to optimize the camera. I'll try to do that. But again, overall, my take is total game changer. Am I a mirrorless convert? Yes. And I think that I still think there's a place for the 1DX, although I will tell you my back will be really happy to carry an R versus a 1DX, or 100 to 500 lens versus a 200 to 400. I will tell you that when I shoot typical events, weddings or bar mitzvahs, I shoot with two cameras today, 5D Mark IV, 1DX Mark II. But when you're running around with this beast for 5 hours and you're doing spray and pray shots where you're holding it up over your head, which I do quite a bit, that is taxing on your back. My chiropractor loves it when I use the 1DX, but it is hard to do. I can tell you that the thought of taking this little guy and doing a spray and pray shot over my head would be a lot nicer. I will tell you that when I switched to the 1DX, it doesn't matter which 1DX, when I switched to the 1DX at events, I definitely felt it in my back. It took me about a month or two to build up more core strength, where it didn't hurt me as much, but I clearly felt it. So I would love the ability to shoot with it. The one reason that I use the 1DX so much is because it does write to both cards really fast and it focuses better than the 5D Mark IV. And so if I'm shooting key moments at a reception, I can't afford to wait for the camera and I can't afford for it to be out of focus. So I will opt for the heavier, bulkier 1DX to achieve the image I need. I do believe in using, so far with the R5 and R6, that those cameras will indeed allow me to get the same take rate or better than I'm getting with the 1DX with the face and eye tracking. So, but since there are no events right now, I can't go into a party and test that. So that is based on what I've shot so far and what I think will be the case. But again, that's kind of just a hypothesis at this point more than reality. So the other thing is, as Bob mentioned, because I have the screen that tilts down, when I do a spray and pray shot, I can just tilt the LCD and see what I'm getting. Whereas a lot of times with the 1DX, when I'm holding this up and I'm doing spray and pray, I'll shoot and I look and I go, oh, it's a little too low, and I'll raise the lens up a little bit and shoot kind of guessing. So at least with one of the newer cameras, I can do that, and I can just take the screen and tilt it down, so that I can see what I'm shooting from a high perspective through the LCD, which is handy. So there's definitely advantages to that as well. So excitement level high, budget level, oh darn, I'm gonna have to spend more money. But I do believe that so going from a 5D Mark III to the 5D Mark IV, yeah, the 5D Mark IV was a better camera. Was it amazingly different? No, and I even said that in the blog. The difference between the 5D to 5D Mark II was drastically different. 5D Mark II to Mark III, yeah, it was better. Mark III to Mark IV, yeah, it was better. This is the first game changer camera I've played with, even more, and Canon might get mad at me for this, even more than the 1DX Mark III when it came out, was it 3 or 4 months ago when I first got my hands on it. I was excited about it, but not like I am with the R series. And when I said at the beginning of this, the R6 being $2,200, it's like a third the price of the 1DX Mark III, and can do a lot of what I'm doing, same sensor, same processor. From a budget perspective and what it can achieve, I think is really, really, really cool. So let's see, Jessica, second, the low light question. I will check on that. Shooting soccer games in a stadium with horrible lighting. There's nothing worse than shooting indoor, Jessica, when you have crappy lighting. I almost said the word, I was going to say crappy lighting. We've all been there with really crappy white balance, been there too. And so I will do, like I said, when I do the ISO testing, it's not going to be outside. I will do the ISO testing more than likely in the office here in the evening, or out in the back. Well, the backyard I want to do, because then I'll have changing light. I want it to be consistent. But I will be shooting in very difficult situations where we can zoom in at 300, 400, 500% and look at the noise. And now, with that said, I will, in the blog, I'll show you guys, here's what they look like when they're not at 500%. Because ultimately, that's what we really care about, is how does the image look to our clients? More than, no one walks up to a billboard and goes, God, the resolution's horrible, because each dot on a billboard is like that big. So we want to look at it from a true photography standpoint and see if it's usable or not. And so I will do that, and I'll even put that on my list to make sure I have that right. So low light, high ISO. And I'll try to keep the ISO to reasonable levels. I mean, I might push to 100,000 just to try it, but I prefer not to. So if I was buying my first full frame camera, would I get an R5 or R6? Steve, honestly, it really depends on, if you're independently wealthy, if you're a billionaire, get the R5 because it won't matter. If you're on a standard budget or a reasonable budget, I would actually say the R6. You don't need 45 megapixels. Like I said, the screen on the top the missing LCD on the top didn't bother me at all. Everything else seems to be on par with the processing as far as the focus speeds, eye tracking, everything. So I would, and I'll be honest with you, I was going to get 2 R5s for my event photography. And now I'm thinking maybe I get 2 R6s and then an R5 for Africa, Costa Rica. I don't know yet. Or I get an R5 and an R6. I don't know yet. I'm still grappling with this too, because honestly, prior to a couple weeks ago or a month ago, I was thinking 2 R5s. And now I'm thinking, well, wait a second. If the R6 does what I want it to do at $1,500 less or whatever it is, well, why wouldn't I just get 2 of those? The only drawback of the R6, the other drawback I didn't mention, is it doesn't have CF Express. It just has 2 SD card slots. And I should mention that the cards I'm using right now in this camera, I'm using a combination of the, this is the, well, let me see here. This is the Pro Grade gold card. This is, let me just go full screen here. See what we're doing here. So this is the Pro Grade CF Express card, which I highly recommend. This one, they do have the Cobalt version as well, which is the even faster ones. But because I don't do 8K video, I'm using some of these, but I'm relying more on the gold ones, which are less expensive. And then for the SD cards, I'm also using their, this is a 128 gig, and they have two versions of this as well. They have the Cobalt and the other. And honestly, for shooting stills, you could use either one. Either one will be fine. I will do speed testing of the memory cards as well. And I know, Frank, you sent me an email asking about this specifically. I do want to check out what is the write speed writing to the CF Express versus writing to an SD card, because buffer clear is important, especially when shooting sports or wildlife. So I will test that as well and get back to you. But you know, having the two SD cards versus CF Express is a little bit of a bummer because it's a little bit slower. But again, most people are not under Olympic deadlines like I am. So, so long answer to your question, but I get the R6, honestly. Will wants to know, do I know anything about the new possibilities due to structural changes with the RF mount? There are more connections, which means more data flow and a shorter back element to the sensor distance, which is preferable. Do I know what kinds of possibilities those and the rest of the changes to the mount, what it ends up being? Here's the thing. So the new RF mount does have more connecting points. It is closer to the sensor. To me, what that means is better image quality, faster focus, because we now have more data points connecting the lens to the camera. So your TTL type of computation of what your aperture should be, or how much ambient light is really there, those kinds of things is just, everything appears to have much better reaction time and quicker to focus and to lock in at the proper exposure. So I think ultimately that's what the advantages will be. I mean, image quality, regardless, has been so good that, I mean, Canon will tell you that having the closer back plane means better image quality, but I've never had an image problem with Canon. So, and again, some of this is marketing speak, and to me, it's just real world usage. So, Charlie, that's funny. Someone walked over your keyboard. Your cat walked over your keyboard. That's great. I love that. Let's see, Dimitri, liked the session. Thanks, Dimitri. Appreciate that. And I will keep you guys posted to the next ones. Let's see, Mario, can you also crop more? Let's see, you can crop more from the R5, better flexibility for sports and wildlife. So when I shoot sports and wildlife, I actually prefer not to crop in camera. I actually prefer to shoot the best I can get, and I'll crop later when I'm in Photoshop. So there are certain advantages to cropping in camera, and that your exposure values might change. I actually prefer to shoot raw images as large as I can get them, and I'll do the cropping later. And that's kind of typically the way I work. Oh, Dave wants to know, is the Canon 600 EF Speedlite compatible with the R5? It is. I just did portraits of a family Saturday before the mitzvah. We went outside and did ambient light shooting. I used the 600 EX RT flash first time on the R5. I was a little nervous. I know this sounds bizarre. I'd never practiced, and I hate to use paying customers as guinea pigs. So I shot it with the 1DX Mark III. We had a little bit of spare time. I said, wait, hold it. Don't change your grouping, because it's a nice family shot. Actually, I could show it to you. And then, let me see if I have it on here. Let's see. Yeah. All right, let me show this. Hopefully it's okay with the family. So this is the shot, and this is shot. Oops, it's not popping. Come on, resolution. Good Lord. Let's see if I can. There it goes. This is shot with the R5. I'd use the 600 EXRT to fill them. Otherwise, they would have been a little bit more silhouetted because I had backlighting behind them. In post, I did darken the tree in the foreground because my flash did light this up a little bit too much for me. So I went and darkened that back down. But I needed that fill to light the family. So that was the first time I'd done it, and actually worked very, very well. The one thing that's different when you're using mirrorless is when you're using mirrorless, you're used to seeing exactly what you're getting. The minute you add a flash, you are not seeing what you're getting because you don't see the fill flash until your image is taken. I will also say that one of the first things I turned on with the R5 is I turned on the review on. So when I took a picture, it showed me a review for a couple seconds in the LCD, turned it off immediately because it gets in the way of me shooting. So I do not do that now. I just go and I hit the playback button if I need to review the image. So again, when you're taking the images in the camera without flash, you see what you're getting anyway. When you do add a flash, you are now changing your values because you're adding light that the camera can't anticipate. So then you have to look at your image and see what you get afterwards. So let's see, anything else? Let's see. Whoa, Catherine had the R5 crash multiple times because the writing to the SD card was too slow. Resolve when you switch to CF Express. I have not done that, and I shot quite a bit. Those surfers, if you look at the sequences, I was shooting all the way through and did not have that. And I should mention, a lot of people are asking about overheating. I have not had any issues with overheating. Catherine's shaking her head too. Zero. And I did shoot a lot with the surfers. Now, granted, it was at the coast. It was like 75 degrees, so it wasn't very hot either. But I will tell you, I'm not a big video shooter. When I do shoot the videos that you see on my YouTube channel, those are generally at 1080p. I might shoot 4K, but I'm not going to shoot 8K. There's no reason. So I'm not worried about overheating, honestly. Jason wants to know if the viewfinder blackout, is there a blackout when shooting at 20 frames per second? No, you don't. Literally when you're shooting, other than the frame around the image is blinking to let you know that it's shooting, it is very disconcerting for a DSLR photographer to shoot mirrorless at 20 frames a second and not get feedback that it's going other than the border changing. It is very weird, but it is amazing at the same time because it's just so dead on, you know, and again, the image quality is so good. So no blackout at all, I'm happy to say. If there's any other questions, I know we're running over here. And some of you are up late. I appreciate those. Carl, Ian, those are overseas. And those who got up early, I appreciate it. I will always answer more questions if you have them. Feel free to email me and I'll answer them. And I will be posting this. I'll edit it down and post it on YouTube probably the next day or so, or maybe even tonight. We'll see. But appreciate everybody hopping on. Hopefully you guys all learned something. I know that I'm learning by the minute. So every time I pick these things up, I'm pushing it harder and harder to see if I can find a breaking point or, you know, things that are not working the way I expect them to. And like I said, so far, I've been surprised how well they performed. So that's a good thing. I'm happy about that. So until next time, and we'll probably have a guest speaker next time as well. I've got a National Geographic guy in mind that we'll probably have in a week and a half or so. So stay tuned for that. And everybody keep smiling and stay safe. And let's hope we get over this pandemic soon because I'm at the end. But it is good to see all of you here. And it's and I do appreciate, by the way, your comments, your emails, and just even having you just join on this. It's fun to share with all of you guys and to, you know, to go and spend 5 hours yesterday shooting just to be able to give you a report. It's nice to be able to do it and share that with you guys. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Jeff.
No problem. Glad
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jeff.
No problem. Anytime.